Before we get started, I want to clarify that this video will mainly focus on the gameplay of Watch Dogs Legion. The footage you're about to watch is from a PC build, but please keep in mind things are subject to change as the game is being worked on every single day. Alright, with that out of the way, let's jump straight into this. As you know, the main selling point of this game has been play as anyone. For the most part, this feature is fantastic, especially from a gameplay standpoint. Characters throughout the worlds will have different abilities, so you can make a really diverse and interesting team. I was super fortunate to have a spy who comes with his own car that can literally shoot out rockets, and it even has its own cloaking device. I recruited an Albion guard and police officer, which allowed me access into restricted areas. I had a construction worker who had a nail gun specific to them, and they could also call a drone at any given time. A lot of the stuff that I just mentioned was not in the builds at last E3. A lot has changed since last year. Characters on your team no longer have levels, the UI has been completely reworked and in my opinion looks a lot better, and the game in general looks a lot more polished. Also, despite these changes, the recruitment system has still stayed the same. You can profile anyone in the world, and if you like a character you see, you can do favors for them and put them on your team. An example that sticks out to me is I wanted to recruit a Royal Guard, and since he works with Albion, I needed to do a few more favors for him than most people to get him on DedSec's side. Unfortunately, after I did all of these favors, I kinda ended up putting him in the hospital by accident. Yeah. Bagley basically called me a fucking idiot. Then I had to go to the hospital, take care of his paperwork, and once he was released, he wanted a lot more favors, and eventually, I got him on my team. And let me just say, it was worth it. Look at this man. He's perfect. No, but joking aside, I did actually encounter an issue that's definitely worth mentioning. When I tried to go back to Buckingham Palace as this character, I unfortunately was met with some resistance right away. I'm not sure if this was a bug or not for my demo, but I'm sure it'll be sorted out when the final game releases. For the most part, I do want to say most of these recruitment missions were fairly unique. I may have visited the same place once or twice, but there was different objectives. I'm sure if you start recruiting more and more characters, you'll have repeat missions, but at least from what I played, it didn't feel that repetitive. Watch Dogs Legion also features a combat system, which we've never really had in the series before, and it's not that advanced. I think X is punch, B is counter, and Y is a grapple to break a defense. But despite there not being that many controls, it actually took me a while to get the hang of it. I definitely recommend doing the boxing activity towards the start of the game, because that will actually give you plenty of practice. Once you start knowing when to counter, combat is a lot of fun. I just wasn't really used to it at first. I also really love the fact if you go into a restricted area and use a melee weapon, the enemies will use one as well instead of just pulling out a gun and shooting you on the spot. Overall, the combat and the gameplay was fantastic. I do kind of wish more characters had some lethal weapons. In Legion, there isn't any gun shops, so if you recruit a character who doesn't have like a specific weapon assigned to them, they automatically just get non-lethal ones. I get why they did this, it's just a shame because I love seeing those lethal takedowns. It reminds me so much of Watch Dogs 1 and I just can't get enough of it. Now let's switch gears and talk about the driving. This game is definitely closer to Watch Dogs 2 than Watch Dogs 1 in this aspect. I don't think the driving is gonna blow anyone away, but it gets the job done. I feel like overall physics have improved, handling for most cars feel authentic, and one cool detail I noticed is when making a turn in this specific car, it was on two wheels for like a split second. So they have worked on the driving, but it's nothing special. It works like it should. I will say one disappointing thing is there's no different camera views when you're in a car. This was a feature in Watch Dogs 1 and Watch Dogs 2, so the fact that they removed it is kinda disappointing. They also removed random things like going into clothing shops and your phone being the main menu. And listen, I'm always for switching things up as long as you can replace it with something that's hopefully better, but it's not really the case here. They just removed features that were in the last two games, and I really don't understand why. It's not like I'm angry about it, it's not that big of a deal, but I'm just kind of confused more than anything. Anyway, I want to talk about parkour now because the last time I did, people seemed to think I didn't like it, and that's not the case. Is it better than Watch Dogs 2? No, it's not. But it does have some things going for it. I mean, obviously, older characters are going to struggle going over objects, climbing up things, and that's honestly fun to watch. The younger, more agile character does parkour just fine, but the problem is there's just not that much of it. It's kind of hard to explain, but Watch Dogs 2 was definitely built with parkour in mind, whereas this game, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but it just wasn't one of their main priorities. And again, I want to make this crystal clear, the parkour isn't bad, I just wish the map supported it a bit more. And maybe it does. I only played 9 hours, so it's definitely possible there's a lot of spots that I just happen to miss. Speaking of the map though, this is honestly such a beautiful world, and the game definitely looks its best when it's dark out. I mean, just look at this footage. RTX honestly makes such a big difference. And don't forget, the map is also the same size as Watch Dogs 2. Seriously, I can't praise the map enough. It's beautiful. It's definitely the best looking Watch Dogs, at least when it comes to the map. And I mean, for having the ability to recruit anyone, character models are surprisingly decent as well. In the open world though, you can also do various activities such as darts, a football/soccer minigame, delivering packages, street art, and all these are brand new to the series. My personal favorite, which I mentioned earlier, is the boxing activity. It really teaches you the combat system, and it's just a lot of fun. Looking at this footage now, I honestly just can't wait to try it out with the granny. It's gonna be horrible, and I love that. And last but not least, I mean, this is Watch Dogs, so I have to talk about hacking. There are the usual hacks like going into cameras, distracting guards, and all of that which you've come to expect. Legion also adds some new mechanics though, where you can hack like 4 different drones, make bodies invisible, make yourself invisible, you can now jam weapons, and a lot of these new hacks are definitely more mission focused, if that makes sense. You're going to be using them a lot in restricted areas as opposed to the open worlds. The open world hacking sadly has had some stuff removed. You can no longer hack streetlights that I'm aware of. I don't think you can blow up pipes anymore. As far as I know, there's not going to be a blackout hack. You can't call cops on enemies. And at first, I really didn't like that, but as I've had more and more time to play this game, I have to admit the combat, the missions, and play as anyone mechanic are fantastic. I've started to realize that this isn't Watch Dogs 3. This is Watch Dogs Legion, and it's being made by Ubisoft Toronto, not Montreal. And I have to make this clear as well, there's still plenty of hacking. They're just focusing more on the mission side of things instead of the open worlds when it comes to hacking. It's different, not bad. Honestly, I've come to really enjoy this game. It definitely does things different, but again, different doesn't always mean bad. Hopefully this video has given you some insight into what you can expect from Watch Dogs Legion. I'm still worried about the story, and I'll make a separate video on that, but from a gameplay perspective, they switched things up, and I think this is one of the most unique games that you'll probably ever experience. I can't believe I'm saying that, because this is a Ubisoft game, but seriously, it's ambitious, and I can't wait to play more of it. As always though, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.